The cafeteria buzzed with the chatter of students, trays clattering and laughter echoing across the room. In the middle of the crowded space, a young woman in a wheelchair quietly maneuvered her way to an empty table. Her name was Captain Sarah Mitchell. To the students around her, she was just another face on campus, someone who moved slower, someone different. But what they didn't know was that Sarah had once flown faster and higher than almost anyone alive. A group of college kids near the window noticed her struggling with her tray. Instead of offering help, they exchanged smirks. One whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear, "Guess she can't even carry her own lunch." The others burst into laughter, their mockery sharp and cruel. Sarah kept her head down, her movements calm, refusing to give them the reaction they craved. Years of discipline had trained her to stay composed, but their words still cut deep. Around her, some students shifted uncomfortably, but no one intervened. To them, she seemed fragile, a woman whose life had been reduced to wheels and limitations. None of them could have guessed the truth, that her wheelchair was not a sign of weakness, but of battles fought and sacrifices made in the sky. As one student sneered, "Bet she's never even done anything exciting in her life," Sarah's lips curved into the faintest smile. That was the moment the story changed. Because tomorrow, during the guest lecture series on leadership and courage, those very same students would come face to face with the real Captain Sarah Mitchell, a decorated F-16 fighter pilot who had once defended her country at 1,500 miles per hour. The bullies had no idea what was coming. The next morning, the campus auditorium hummed with anticipation. Posters around the hall announced a special guest speaker for the university's annual Courage in Leadership seminar. Most students shuffled in without much thought, eager for an easy credit hour. Among them sat the same group who had mocked Sarah the day before, laughing as if the incident had already been forgotten. When the dean walked to the podium, his voice carried authority. "Today, we are honored to host someone whose story defines resilience, bravery, and sacrifice. Please welcome Captain Sarah Mitchell, decorated F-16 fighter pilot." Gasps rippled through the room. Students craned their necks, expecting to see a tall, uniformed officer stride across the stage. Instead, the wheelchair moved forward. Sarah's face was calm, composed, the same woman they had ridiculed over cafeteria trays. The bullies exchanged stunned glances. This had to be a mistake. The dean continued, listing her achievements: over 200 combat missions, multiple commendations for bravery, and a record few pilots had ever matched. Every sentence widened the gap between the students' assumptions and the truth. The woman they thought was weak had once commanded skies in ways they could hardly imagine. Sarah reached the microphone, pausing as the silence thickened. "Yesterday, some of you saw me as fragile. But let me tell you, strength doesn't always look like what you expect." Her voice was steady, each word deliberate. The students who mocked her squirmed in their seats, disbelief etched across their faces. How could the woman they had laughed at possibly be the same one who had flown at supersonic speeds, protecting countless lives? The auditorium held its breath, caught between shame, admiration, and a growing sense of suspense. Sarah was about to shatter every stereotype they thought they understood. Sarah began her talk with quiet confidence, describing the path that led her to the cockpit of an F-16. She spoke of long nights in flight school, the punishing G-forces that tested her body, and the moments of fear she had to conquer thousands of feet above the ground. But as her words filled the auditorium, the same group of college students who had mocked her shifted restlessly in their seats. One leaned over and muttered just loud enough for others to hear, "She's exaggerating, no way someone in a wheelchair flew a fighter jet." A ripple of doubtful laughter spread through the back rows. The tension in the room thickened. Sarah paused, letting the disbelief hang in the air. For a moment, it seemed like the same cruel dynamic was repeating itself: dismissal, mockery, rejection. The audience leaned forward, unsure how she would respond. Then Sarah smiled, her composure unshaken. "You think my chair defines me? Let me show you what actually does." With a flick of her wrist, she cued a video onto the massive screen behind her. The footage came alive, Sarah, in her flight suit, helmet on, seated in the cockpit of her F-16. The jet roared down the runway, lifting into the skies with the kind of force that shook hearts as much as it rattled windows. The camera caught her voice over the comms, steady and commanding, as she led her squadron through complex maneuvers. The laughter died instantly. The auditorium sat in stunned silence, eyes locked on the screen. When the clip ended, Sarah turned back to the students. Strength isn't about standing tall, it's about refusing to fall. Whispers spread through the crowd, but this time they carried a new weight, recognition, awe, and curiosity. The air in the auditorium felt electric, as though everyone was holding their breath. Sarah had just shown them the footage, but now came the real test, her words. Could she break through the wall of ignorance, shame, and doubt staring back at her? One of the same students who had mocked her stood up, voice trembling with a mix of arrogance and guilt. If you were really that great, Captain, why are you in a chair now? Doesn't that mean, you failed? The question cut like a blade. A hush fell over the room. Even the dean's face darkened at the cruelty of the remark. All eyes locked on Sarah, waiting to see if this was the moment she would crumble. But Sarah didn't falter. She drew in a slow breath, her hands resting firmly on the arms of her chair. Failure, she repeated softly. No. This chair is not failure, it is the price of courage. Her voice rose, strong and unwavering. On my last mission, my jet took fire. I landed it safely, saving my wingman's life. The impact left me like this, but if I had the choice, I would do it again, because real strength is measured by what we protect, not by how we stand. Silence stretched across the hall, heavy with emotion. The same students who had laughed at her in the cafeteria now stared with wide eyes, faces pale with shame. For the first time, they saw her not as someone broken, but as someone unbreakable. And then, a ripple of applause began, hesitant at first, then growing louder, stronger, until the entire auditorium was on its feet, giving Sarah the recognition she had long earned. She had passed the ultimate test, not just proving herself, but changing hearts. The thunder of applause lingered long after Sarah's words faded. Students wiped their eyes, some clapping with raw intensity, others too humbled to do anything but stand in silence. The same group that had once mocked her now couldn't even meet her gaze. Shame had turned to respect, and respect was slowly becoming admiration. After the lecture, a line of students formed, eager to shake her hand, thank her, or simply whisper an apology. One of the bullies, the boy who had spoken so cruelly, approached last. His voice was low, almost breaking. I was wrong. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Sarah studied him for a moment, then offered a small nod. Now you do know. What matters is what you do with that knowledge. Her story spread beyond the campus. Clips of her speech went viral, filling feeds with her message of resilience and courage. Veterans groups shared her words. Parents told their children about the woman who refused to let tragedy define her. Even the dean called it the most important lesson our students have ever received. And for Sarah, the impact wasn't measured in applause or views, but in transformation, the subtle shift she saw in the faces of those who had once doubted her. The cafeteria that once echoed with laughter at her expense now carried whispers of respect when she passed by. Strangers offered help not out of pity, but out of genuine kindness. As she wheeled across campus one quiet afternoon, sunlight spilling through the tall glass windows, Sarah thought back to that first day in the cafeteria. Then she smiled. They had seen only a wheelchair, but now, they would always see the pilot who soared above the clouds. Her strength had redefined what it meant to truly fly.